Right now in this country, Asian people are being robbed, attacked, knocked out by black people. What do you think about that?
I'm watching the news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think? And they're trying to blame it on the whites, but it's the blacks who are doing it. What do you think about what the blacks are doing to the Asians? Why is that, and what should be done about it?
We know that when there's sort of oppression coming in a systemic way, it happens in a very micro scale in the family. It happens in a company, let's say, or it happens in a society. There's a reason why people do that. Maybe the person himself or herself might not be able to explain it, but there's this accumulation of this anger, frustration. I feel it's really sad for the family of the victims.
Yeah.
And this has to be stopped. But the way we want have it stop I think it has a lot to do with this accumulation of these frustrations that couldn't be expressed otherwise, more skillfully. So that is a cause that's beyond their comprehension sometimes.
So do you think the blacks are doing it because they need nirvana, or is it someone else's fault?
Because of some nirvana or somebody else's fault. I see that must be happening for a reason, because of, we say things happen for a reason, but I like to use it like things do happen because of a cause, right? So when there is anger, we at least, I know it's easy to say this again, but at least we try and make an effort to understand. Anger, some teachers say, is the most unskillful way of expressing, reaching out, right?
Yeah.
So what is it that makes the person reach out in such an unskillful way? And then we say the crying of that, the suffering. How do we see that suffering or that?
So why do you think the blacks are doing this? Attacking the Asian, why?
I have some thoughts, but then I don't all want to say that I know. When I was invited to the BL, Black Lives Matter movement,
You were?
I was invited to this movement in Long Beach.
Did you go?
Yeah, I had a chance to.
You support them?
I support this ancestral, well, I had to start like from acknowledging my whole ignorance as their neighbors. I am their neighbors, right? And I would like to support them as long as they comes from this crying, this desperation, because that has a cause, and that has, if the cause, part of the cause is from our ignorance, from our indifference, that's something at least I could contribute to.
But they so evil, they so angry, they're so out of control.
Right.
A bunch of fat, black, radical lesbians who are monsters.
Uh-huh.
Who is to blame for what they're doing? They're so violent.
Mm.
Why you support them? They're so violent.
I don't support violence at
But you
all.
support Black Lives Matter.
What I talked about there was the story of Native Canadian people.
That didn't help.
I don't know if it helped or it didn't,
But whose fault is it that the blacks are attacking the Asians?
Mm. I do wonder, like, if it's because they're targeting at vulnerable people, right? Elder members.
Yeah.
I don't know enough probably, but I know that when there's this streams of tension, stream of anger that can be targeted, trickled down toward the more vulnerable or powerless, and that I just wonder
what should be done about the blacks attacking the Asians?
I agree with people that Asian people tend to be quiet,
Yep.
right? We don't speak up.
Yep.
We have this patience is definitely a key term for something that we have inherited from our ancestors, including our own parents and grandparents.
But we're about to run out of time. What should be done to the blacks for attacking the
Right,
Asians?
right.
What should be done?
We always come back to the same. You might think, this is so lukewarm or something, but always comes back to this approach of understanding, listening and understanding.
Should they be
endless effort of
And
this.
then put them in jail? Could we lock them away and throw away the key?
If that helps the person to recognize the cause and effect,
Yeah.
and helps him, and
Yeah.
then of course there's definitely this sorrow and pains and trauma of the family of the victims. So, but also I guess to help them as well to move on to, gosh, even the word move on sounds really, it's cruel because I wasn't there. If it was my own family, talked about my son, right? I would probably surrender to the emotions easily. But then in the end, we have to come back. I'm sorry, so what we need to do as individuals or as a community,
The Asian.
as an Asian community,
Right.
we learn lessons from our ancestors. When Japanese Americans were incarcerated, and they came back, I think people didn't speak up, right?
Right,
People
yeah.
didn't speak up, but there's definitely that sort of ongoing unexpressed little anger that they didn't even know how to address at the time,
Yeah.
right? Which there was more of space to, they could
they
at
need to
least
speak up
share,
more.
yeah,
Yeah.
share that, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, they were great gardeners when they lost their jobs. Their patience. Nowadays people talk about like Japanese thing, Japanese pop culture and Japanese thing, but some people say we can't overlook the fact that this sort of trust was not just the effort of Japanese in the mainland, it's young people, it's this invisible effort that people made.
Yeah.
It's the virtue of that flows as an ethnic community.